friends, welcome to Bookworm Garden's Summer Camp Club Week 2. This week we're talking about little botanists. A botanist is a scientist that studies plants. So this week you're going to take a closer look at some plants, make some art with them, and do some investigating. And you can take a picture, post it to Facebook or Instagram, and tag it BWG Summer Camp Club to show us how you are a little botanist this week. I'm sitting in the rainbow garden here at Bookworm Gardens, where we have flowers every color of the rainbow. Every flower has petals, a stem, leaves, and roots. We're going to take a closer look at these flowers, how they're the same and how they're different.
These red salvia have long tube-like petals that stick out from the top of the stem. These orange celosia are very fun. They have long petals that stick up and look kind of like hair. We have orange and yellow marigolds in the rainbow garden. Their petals are small and kind of stack up on top of each other in a circle. Their leaves are a little different too. They've got lots of tiny leaves all together. These green flowers are called Sweet William, and they're so fun. Their stems are really tall, and on the top, their flower makes a ball, and it feels a little fuzzy if you touch it. These purple flowers are called Ageratum. They're small, and look at how small the petals are. There's lots of teeny tiny petals, and their leaves are actually pretty big for such a small flower. And these purple flowers are called a petunia. They have big round petals, and if you touch them, they're very soft. They're one of my favorites at the garden.
When you're done exploring plants, you can even make some art out of them.
We used our tree cookies and we decorated them in our own ways. So you can paint it and press some flowers, or you can just press flowers and use your Mod Podge on top. You can see each of them are very different in their own pretty way. So you can use your imagination and create whatever you'd like out of your tree cookie.
Very cool. I love nature art.
Yay!
Our story today is called The Curious Garden by Peter Brown. There is once a city without gardens or trees or greenery of any kind. Most people spent their time indoors. As you can imagine, it was a very dreary place. However, there was one boy who loved being outside. Even on drizzly days while everyone else stayed inside, you could always find Liam happily splashing through his neighborhood. It was on one such morning that Liam made several surprising discoveries. He was wandering around the old railway, as he did from time to time, when he stumbled upon a dark stairwell leading up to the tracks. The railway had stopped working ages ago, and since Liam had always wanted to explore the tracks, there was only one thing for the curious boy to do. Liam ran up the stairs, pushed open the door, and stepped out onto the railway. The first thing he saw was a lonely patch of color. Wildflowers and plants were the last things he expected to find up there. But when he took a closer look, it became clear that the plants were dying. They needed a gardener. Liam may not have been a gardener, but he knew that he could help, so he returned to the railway the very next day and got to work. The flowers nearly drowned, and he had a few pruning problems, but the plants patiently waited while Liam found better ways of gardening. Look, he's singing them a song. As the weeks rolled by, Liam began to feel like a real gardener, and the plants began to feel like a real garden. Most gardens stay in one place, but this was no ordinary garden. With miles of open railway ahead of it, the garden was growing restless. It wanted to explore. The tough little weeds and mosses were the first to move. They popped up farther and farther down the tracks and were closely followed by more delicate plants. Over the next few months, Liam and the Curious Garden explored every corner of the railway. It's beautiful. There it goes, down the railroad tracks. After spending his spring and summer and autumn with the garden, Liam's time on the railway was finally interrupted by winter. Heavy blankets of snow fell on the city that season, and for the first time since he'd become a gardener, Liam could not visit his plants. Rather than waste his winter worrying about the gardens, Liam spent it preparing for spring. After 3 cold months, the snow finally began to melt, and Liam rolled his new gardening gear over to the railway. Winter had taken a toll on the garden, but thanks to Liam's planning, his handy new tools, and a little help from the sun, the plants soon awoke from their winter sleep. The garden had always wanted to explore the rest of the city, and that spring it was finally ready to make its move. Once again, the tough little weeds and mosses set out first. They popped up farther and farther away from the railway and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. The garden was especially curious about old, forgotten things. A few plants popped up where they didn't belong. Others mysteriously popped up all at once. But the most surprising thing that popped up were the new gardeners. Look at all these kids. They're all holding water cans. Ooh, would you like stairs covered in grass? Be nice and soft. Ooh, our fun animals. Many years later, the entire city had blossomed. But of all the new gardens, Liam's favorite was where it all began. Isn't the town beautiful now with all those gardens? The end. That was a really fun little garden, wasn't it? The garden was the one who wanted to explore. It's great to be curious, especially about gardens. And here at Bookworm Gardens, we have so many gardens to be curious about. Chloe's going to show us one of her favorite curious gardens here at Bookworm.
Right. So we are going to go on a tour of my favorite curious garden. So all of our plants are named after a different kind of animal or a part of an animal, and I'll explain why. So first we have our lamb's ear, and if you come to the garden and you pet it, it really feels nice and soft, just like a lamb. Oh, so soft. Next we have our pig squeak plant. We take the little leaves and rub the shiny sides together. Sounds like a little pig squeaking. That one's so fun. Then we're gonna sneak in through here. You can follow me along. We have our zebra plant. If you look super close on these, you can see the little stripes going through. If you examine all of these plants enough, you can kind of figure out why they're named what they're named. So my next plant I'm going to show you is the mouse ear hosta. If you look at it, the leaves, they're super tiny in comparison to our next plant, which is our elephant ears, which kind of look like big floppy elephant ears. So if you look at this versus the mouse ears, you can tell exactly what plant is what. Here in our Is Your Mama a Llama garden, which is my favorite curious garden at Bookworm.